All right, here we go. Database development design, week 8, SQL aggregates lessons. This is our SQL lesson for the week. We're going to learn about aggregation so we can do things like counting, totals, averages, those kind of things. We're just going to kind of touch on the subject. There's a lot more you can get into. Uh, I'll put some links down in the video for like a W3 school and stuff. They got some pretty cool lessons on this kind of stuff. But again, this is just something. If I tried to do everything, this would be like a 2-hour video. So let's go ahead. Let's pop on over to a slide deck I have set up for us. All right. So again, we're going to be doing SQL aggregates, how to get counts and averages out of a database. Okay. One of the main uses of data, and hold on, let me fix this weekend. One of the main uses of data in the business world is statistical analysis, business, science world, the whole thing. And that's the whole thing. You're trying to get some kind of meaningful counts and numbers out of the data. So how can you tell, things like how can you tell which store is performing better? You can look at a total or average of sales numbers. Which schools are performing better? We can look at their average test scores. An athlete's the fastest runner. We can look at things like max speed. Well, how do we do that within a database? All right. Let's start with a couple tools here. First one we're going to look at is called Top. Now, Top is, and I want this to be very clear, Top is a SQL server. This one is one of those SQL server lines, kind of like Go, that, Go I don't recommend using because it's just, nobody else uses it. But the Top is another SQL server only one, but it's very useful. What Top does is return the first X number of records you want. So, the syntax looks like this: select top 10, and then I've got this wildcard for all my columns from the table. Let's go ahead. We'll pop into our SQL server. Let me again change the angle, the camera angle here. All right, so I've got this table here. It's got 100 records in it. Okay, so if I said to this, I want the top 5 from this, and I run this right now, you'll notice now only 5 return. If I say I want the top 10, and that's it. And what's this really good for is, especially when you're, if you're looking at a big table that has a couple million records, when you just hit select all, it could take a minute or two before you get your results, but you just want a really quick look at the table, see what's in there. So you can just do a top 10 to look at what you're looking at. So that's where Top kind of comes in handy. All right, let's go ahead. Let's pop back over to our next one here, which will be count. Count is used to count the number of records. In this case, we're just going to use again, the wildcard for all the columns. You could put an actual column in there if you want, and you'll see in some other examples where we actually use a column. But the syntax for this as follows: just select count from table, and it's going to return. This time, you're not going to return any records. What you're going to return is an actual number from cust orders. This is if you're on my class, it's the cust orders table we used last week in the lab. Or not even the lab, I think there's examples I was teaching, but it should be in your database under cust orders. So I go ahead and we hit select, and you'll see I got 100. So that's that's how it works. So instead of getting any kind of, and notice you get this no column name here. So a lot of times when you do an aggregate, you'll say select count, so that when you're looking at your data, you at least know what you're looking at. I got a count of 100. So that's how many records I have. All right. Back over to our slide deck. Let's see what we got for us next. All right. So the next one we're going to look at is distinct. Distinct returns a number of unique elements in a column. So now we're going to have to pick a column. Or you could do a distinct row. But you should always, if you have a primary key, like this example here, we've got a primary key. So every row is going to be distinct by itself. So even if all of this information behind were an exact match, this code right here makes this a unique row. It's a primary key. So that's the reason for it being a unique row. So if you wanted to get all the rows in here together, you would have a distinct and you would just list all the other columns. But we're just going to pick one to make life easier. If we want to see how many unique departments there are below, we're going to go ahead and check this out. Go into our thing here, and we're going to say select. Now, what did we want again? We wanted departments. Let's go ahead and let's look at the table again, just so we know what we're looking at. So we've got, sometimes I lose track. So departments, we want to know how many distinct departments are in this table. So at that point, we type in distinct department. And there you go. It'll only return each unique department. So there's 5 unique departments in this database. So if you look back at what we had before, bam. So instead of listing it multiple times, it just lists each unique, distinct item once. Okay. There we go. So now you see, that's the question. You want to see how many unique departments are below, you would, look into these departments. It would be, the code again is distinct with the column name you want. And if you have multiple columns, you just list multiple columns out there. But keep in mind, there's no point in running it if there's a primary key, because your primary key makes each row unique. Okay. Next, we'll look at min and max. Min and max do what they sound like. It returns the minimum and the maximum of any column you choose from. So let's go back and take a look at our database. Let's get back in here again. So we've got this price number. This is a good one to go on. Now you could do dates too. I could do, just so you can see, because you saw in my example, I did a number, but I could return a date as well, just so you can see. So that picks the largest date, and I could get the minimum date too. So that 1998, that's definitely the oldest date. So, but just to look at our example, we can do max price, comma, minimum price. Now keep in mind, see, I'm using the same column more than once. You have probably seen that before. You haven't seen an example where you could actually put a column in more than once. In fact, if you wanted to go just plain flat out, there's no reason you'd want to do this. I can't think of possibly, but just the columns themselves, I could do this, from cust orders. It would give me the columns, and you could list them twice. Why? I don't know you'd want to do that, but you could. One thing, I don't know. I can't think of a reason, but that's something you can do. But you can always list columns more than once. In here, we're doing the min and max. And one thing, again, look at this. I got no column name, no column name. So if I'm not sure what I'm looking at, sometimes it's easier to say as max and as min, and just run that, and it'll now all know min, max, And I would probably, if it was my example, I'd write like max price and min price, just so the person getting the data knows what the heck they're looking at, because it happens a lot. You'll send somebody some data and there's no column names, or the column name's some weird code, you're not sure what it means. So that's something to think about. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's take a look at our next slides we've got so far. Let's just do a quick recap. So far we've done top, count, distinct, min and max. Okay, now we're going to look at average and sum. Now you notice average and sum, you'll see that the syntax is very much just what we did there with the min and max. So it's just average, put your column in there, sum, put your column. And I notice I put the as's on there, and it returns your average for the price and the sum for the price across there. And again, this is the situation. There's a whole lot of other of these aggregates, and I'll put a link down in the description of the video to like some websites that have some more information on this, because I would just be here forever if we decided we wanted to cover this. Okay, oh, whoops, so that slide's on the wrong side. I'll move that. All right, let's get back here. So that was distinct. That was my slide was in the wrong place. All right, so now everything we've done so far, you'll notice, is either on a single column or on all of them, just a general counter. But all we're doing is we're returning a single column. That's all we want. What happens when we want to take a look at it across multiple columns? So let's say you only want to count the orders from the tools department, okay? And what's the max price on all credit card orders? How do we answer these questions? Well, we have to add another column to our search and use what's called a group by. So in a group by, the rule of thumb is that any column not part of an aggregate function needs to be listed in the group by cost. So let's go ahead, let's look at this, and I'm going to go do a couple examples now just to make this easy. So we've got select department count from customer orders group by department, all right? So what that gives us is all 5 of our departments we saw in distinct, and it gives us a count here, okay? That's how many orders or records exist in each department. And you'll see I broke my own rule and I didn't change the column name because I don't know why, I was being lazy. Don't do that. So let's look at some examples. Let's go ahead, let's take a look at our data again, just so we know what we're looking at. And let me change our video angle so you've got a better view on the video, what's going on. All right, there we go. So I'll take a look. Let's say I want to know what the average price, sale price is by payment method. I want to know who's spending more on what. So what I can do here is we know we want to get the average of the price. We know, so we know how to do that already. We've done this, that's average of price, and we'll just as, oops, my typing, AVG price. Okay, so that we can do. All right, there we go. That gives our average price. But I want the average price by each payment method. So what I'll do is I'll put before there, I'm going to put payment, okay, comma. So just like treat these aggregates just like you would a column. This, just view this as a column itself, okay, from cust orders. And now I have to sit there and say group by payment. Because what I'm going to show, I'm going to show you the error if I don't. If I just do this right here, if I just try to run this, they're going to get an error. Cust orders payment is invalid in the select list because, of course, you can't see it. Let's see if I can slide this over for you. Because it is not contained in either the aggregate function or the group by cause. Okay. So again, if it's not an aggregate, if you have a column here, because again, I showed you before, you can have average price, and I could have, you know, sum of prices. So I can have more than one aggregate as sum price. But I do need anything that's not being aggregated or counted or any totaled, anything like that. That's what I mean by aggregated. That has to be in this group by column. So payment is not being messed with. So there we go. So now we've done that. Now we have payment, cash, check, credit card, average price, sum of price. We can also, if you wanted to, in case we're even being more, you know, this is the kind of stuff you do in, you know, when you do data analysis, especially if you're working in finance or something, you slice and dice stuff. Now we want to know, let's look at the average prices and payment method by departments. So now we'd have to put there into the group by, because remember, everything that is not aggregated has to be in this group by clause. So there we go. So now I can go, so now it goes clothing, cash, electronics, gas. So you can see them all, then you can see clothing, clerk, you know. All right. And if I wanted to, I could throw this in here. I could order by department and then payment, you know, if I want. So that will come out a little bit different now. And now since all the clothing are in a row, all the electronics. So again, so you can add an order by. Notice the order by goes after the group by. So let's again take a second here. Let's take a look at the order here. So we have select or from. The aggregates, keep in mind, these are just columns. These are viewed by as just columns. Then we have the group by. Now, let's say we wanted to put a where in here. Let's say I only want the ones, I only want this information for departments that start with T. I can put a where clause in here. I can say where department like, and remember when we do our wildcard here, it's the percentage sign. So, and let me see if I can get this so you can see it a little, so you can see the whole thing. And there you go. So we have this whole order by department. This is a big, ugly statement, but it'll all make sense if you break it down. But the main thing I want you to see here is the group by comes after the where. So if you have a select, a from, a where, then group by comes. Order by comes after group by. Okay. Order by is the last, no matter what we do. We're gonna add one more element into this, and your order by is going to come after that even. Okay. So again, as we said, rule of thumb: any column not part of the aggregate function needs to be listed in the group by, and the group by goes at the end. If you're going to add a where clause, the group by goes in between, before the group, after the from, before the group by. And this order, is very important to keep in mind in SQL, because that's, what fails a lot of times. And you can use more than one field in a group by clause, just like I did, okay? And then I also showed you, which isn't here, I showed you how you can put your order by. Remember, the order by goes at the end. All right, so the last bit of code we're going to do for today's lesson, because now we've covered, let's just go back, we've covered top, count, distinct, min, max, average, and sum. And again, I can't express, there's so much more, but I just would spend 2 hours in this video, and I don't think that's productive. You can, real life, when you need something, you'll just look it up. Google is a wonderful thing. Group by, and we looked at group by, and now we're going to go called having. Okay, having is a very special where clause designed to work with the aggregate. If I want to know which departments have more than 20 orders, okay, so this is like a two-step idea. So first I have to count how many orders each department has, which we know how to do. We can do that right now. Let's go ahead and just start with that. We're going to go up here, change the camera angle here. One day I'll get better at this whole video production thing. All right, so let's just go back. Let's just say select from cust orders, which we know we want. And we want departments, because we want to know how many departments they have and how many orders they have. So an order in this table here, if you look at the table, each line's an order. So if I count the records, so I have effectively 100 orders in this table because there's 100 records in there. But if I want to do it by department, I'm going to go select department, count from there, and I'm going to say group by department. And there you go. So I know how many orders each one has, but I want to know how many orders. I want to know how many departments have more than 20 orders. So that's when I bring in this having thing. Okay, now having comes here after the group by. So remember, where is up here, where is before. We're not going to use a where, I'm just putting it there. So I've got it commented out with the 2 dashes. If it's green, it's fine. You don't need to, you can run it, it's commented out. I'm just putting it there for a placeholder for you. Having sits down here. So I say having count 0. So notice I'm putting this count here again because I have to tell it what aggregate I'm going against. It's greater than 20. All right, so that's where that comes in. So keep in mind, if I want to look at this data and say, I want to know which ones are credit card, that's a where statement. I want to know which ones are electronics, that's a where. I want to know which one is on this date or between dates or this customer ID. Those are all wheres. If I'm looking directly for data that's already here, it's sitting here in this table. If I have to aggregate data, if I have to do a count or a sum or a min or a max, that's when I want my having statement. So that's where having comes in. So I can technically, watch this, I could have in this statement, I can have a where and I can have a, this having. So I can say where department is not like tools. And now you see I only get one return. But tools was eliminated in this line. The other ones were all eliminated by the having. So when I go back here, if I just take the tools out, because they do not have, see here, having 28, they are above, that's greater than 20. The rest of them are under 20. So that's what you got to keep in mind. So the having is an aggregate. whereas where is a column. When you're looking at information in a column, but when you're looking at some kind of aggregate, some kind of thing you've done, that's where having comes in. And I know it causes a lot of confusion. And just so we're all clear here, let's see if I can, I'm going to go with, sorry, I'm having memory issues here. Let's see where we at. Payment. Okay. So let's just do this real fast, just so I can show you kind of everything at once here. So I've got payment and account. And let's just run this here. Oops. Got an invalid. See what I did? I forgot to put my payment down here in my group by. Great thing though about SQL is that I just errored. I didn't break anything. Nothing got damaged. No data was damaged in this process. So you can see here I've got ones. Now I'm going to change my having just because the data changed. I'm going to set my having to 8. That'll get rid of a lot of them. So now you'll see I've removed department is not equal to, which is what the two greater than less than facing signs look at. And now I'm going to have a having account greater than 8. And now, just for fun, I'm going to order by department. And then I want to do payment descending, just, now it's backward. So what you see now is select from, and keep in mind, the aggregates are treated just like a column. Always keep that in mind. From, where, so select from, where, group by, having, order by. Order by is the last one in this type of thing. So there we go. So that's having, here's some of the code I've got here in the, remember, it goes after the group clause, only works on aggregate functions. And so just to recap, we've done top, we did counts, we did distinct, we did min and max, average and sum. We got into the group by, and we learned anything that's not an aggregate has to be grouped by, that you can group by multiple things. We learned to put the orders in there in the order this all comes into. Then we got into having, and having is based on the aggregate. All right. So, and then again, you can have your where column in there. So say this is, just keep in mind, if you can follow the steps and if you can separate the idea of having with where, because I know that was kind of confusing when I first started this too, but those are good. All right. So this is kind of the general idea. This will get you through the next lab, which I'll have posted. It should be a pretty relatively easy lab, hopefully. I'll be in class if you have any questions. I'm not called. I'll take it back. It's not easy. This is kind of tricky. So it is a little tricky. But thanks again, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.